Yay, I'm going into it too.
Excellent, Brandon. Thank you. I'm very appreciative. And we're going to wait like 2 or 3 minutes um, before we start. Um, before we start. Um, so I'm right. I have to ask: is it a holiday thing? Are the holidays getting to you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. All right. Well, people are calling in, so we'll just go right into it. So today's topic is identity evolution, because as queer persons, the evolution of identity becomes a crucial element of our lives. And so every time I analyze a subject, I come up with like 8 or 10 bullet points. And we'll see if we can cover those in an hour going around the table or not. It's entirely subjective as to whether or not we'll actually achieve that or not. But if we do, great. Um, if we don't, you know, that tracks. So let me get the. Uh, okay, so there. So that appears in the chat window. Um, so we have to consider when you're trans, the evolution of your identity becomes a primary focus. Um, I think when you're a gay person, and Brandon, you can confirm this with the yes or no, you have a similar evolutionary step by step going from whatever straight person to whatever gay queer person you become later.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the first topic that I want to attack is from the closet to the glass house.
Mhm.
And so the closet is safe. It offers you invisibility, but it has walls that compress you and make you feel contained, and often increase your panic and your anxiety. Early identity often exists in boxes that we put them into because we're not ready to deal with the byproduct of publicly expressing ourselves in ways that the outside world can handle. Um, one face for the family, another face for work, a third for the mirror at 3 a.m. when pretense has finally completely exhausted itself. And for me, I thought about this while we were in LA because we got onto the transit bus from the airport to go to the rental car stop. And if you read yesterday's story, yeah, I was crammed on this bus. I had like this one dude wearing like a fuck yeah Texas hat, and another guy in a dusty fedora or whatever, and they were just constantly, you know, shit eye, stink eye, and what the fuck are you eye? Um, so incremental transparency makes sense when that's what you have to deal with. Coming out becomes not a single explosive moment, but just a cyclic, continual event. Um, of basically showing up authentically in expanding circles as you develop that trust going around. Um, and so that my quote for this is very Jungian, because if I was ever going to be a psychologist, I would have been not Reichian and not Freudian, but quite veritably Jungian. And that's the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That sums up the entire narrative. So, all right, Brandon, go.
Oh, I'm put on the spot. Was there a question?
Yeah, from
just go.
Yeah, just go.
Just go.
From the closet into public view.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked before about my coming out was very gradual, and because I knew it wouldn't be accepted by most people in my circle, my family, friends, church, community, anything I was a part of, basically. There were only a select few friends that I knew that I could trust with that.
Right.
And so my identity into being as so gay as I am now was much very gradual, and yeah, I never, I mean, growing up as a child and through school, I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. And I had friends. I had a couple guy friends in elementary school, but most of my friends were girls because I didn't really identify with the guys, because they were into more sports and hunting and fishing and that kind of thing, kind of like my dad was, and I didn't relate to my dad, and I didn't know why. I didn't think about it or anything. And as I entered junior high school and was attracted to guys, and that definitely put me into a kind of identity, what's the word, kind of confusion, or I know there's another word, but I'm not going to sit and try to think of it right now. As you get older, you just can't think of words. At least that's the way with me. I have the word on the tip of my tongue. I know there is a word that I want, exact word, and I cannot think of it. Anyway, that's beside the point. But going through this, identity confusion, because I knew what I was taught was that homosexuality was wrong. I'm supposed to like girls, and yet I'm attracted to guys, and none of the other guys seem to be attracted to guys that I could tell, but yeah, so that put me into a confusion all through high school, and then I felt like I could kind of explore that more when I got into college. But there was still confusion, and I wasn't sure what my identity was because I identified as a Christian, and yet I had attraction to males, but I wouldn't let myself identify as gay. So there was that kind of, they knocked heads, if you will. And it took a while to kind of sort through that and come to my own conclusion. But yeah, I was able to come to my identity evolved back to the topic uh, into instead of being gay, being straight and being confused and whatnot, it evolved into finally accepting myself as I am now. How's that? Was that a good answer?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Is that what you wanted to hear?
That's totally what I wanted to hear.
Oh, good.
Okay, Miranda. I said you were going next, so shit.
Oh. As soon as you say her name, she's gone.
Oh, is Miranda gone?
No,
Oh.
Miranda, come back.
She didn't want it to be her turn.
Okay, well, Onyx.
Okay. Well,
while we're waiting for Miranda to.
Okay. So identity politics. And, I didn't really start questioning that things were not lined up in the sense that I was supposed to be cis male until probably high school, a little bit after. I did all the things that a cis male would do, and that is, playing sports, hanging out with guy friends. But, I had a lot of girlfriends, and those girlfriends sustained me. I played sports, but I played with the girls, as well as playing with the guys. So a lot of my friends were sports people, but they were a mix of girls and guys. There really wasn't, and especially since I lived on an army base, there really wasn't this thought of being gay or being trans or being anything other than just a cis guy, a person assigned male at birth. So, fast forward to a couple of years in my high school years and a couple of years beyond, I started, I did this performative masculinity. It wasn't working. I was breaking down. I was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, which I still do have, but to a lesser degree. Everything that comes with gender dysphoria, basically. I didn't know it was gender dysphoria at the time, and I kept on shoving it down and trying to be the guy's guy. There came a point where I found a book of erotica and on my parents' shelf, and I told my parents about this last year, and they said it must have been my sister's. But I was like, okay, cool, but I read it, and that's when I kind of started to put two and two together. It wasn't necessarily the gay erotica, it was the lesbian erotica that kind of clicked for me. And that's when I start, but at that point I was still like, well, I feel like I was like, I'm still a guy, but I really feel this lesbian erotica, this being a lesbian. And that was the very beginning of everything. Like, how can I feel like a lesbian if I'm a guy? But that was the beginning. And, that was my glass ceiling part. Now, breaking that glass ceiling is I guess what we'll talk about next.
I'm sort of going out of order for my topic sets, but we'll get back around to it.
Okay.
So I wanted to wait for Miranda to get back, and so we can round back with Miranda when she comes back. But This will be an interesting question to answer, and that's the elder self and the temporal reconciliation that comes attached to that. So identity evolution creates one question, and that question is, what do I owe my past self?
Oh,
What do I owe Bill? What do I owe Bill Weber? You know, um, he was the person who lived in the closet, and he used the wrong name, and he dated the wrong people. And are they embarrassment? Is he an embarrassment that I should discard, or an essential chapter that I just have to embrace as a person? And so the way that you approach this, you have to practice compassionate integration rather than just rejecting yourself. Recognizing that past identities, even painful ones, those were survival strategies and necessary steps. If those hadn't have happened, then you could have befallen all manner of depression and anxiety and emotional instability. And oftentimes, those are the things that lead to events like unaliving yourself and going through destructive self-harm and excessive, incorrect coping, drugs and drinking and excessive behaviors, those kinds of things. But creating a narrative of coherence that honors that evolution without erasing it is key. And that allows gratitude for who we are while we're trying to celebrate who we've become. And so the embodiment of this tenet of identity evolution is a Meister Eckhart quote, which says, becoming the mode of activity of the uncreate deity. Becoming is the mode of activity of the uncreate deity. We're always in a state of becoming. Whether we're queer, gay, trans, or not, humans, period, are in a perpetual state of becoming. And that work is not arriving, but in the endless self-transformation process that you go through while you experience that. Each version of ourselves is a passage in that book, and not a mistake, and something you don't use whiteout over and then correct it with. So Brandon, so that's the question. Do you owe your past self anything? And if so, what or why?
It's a little difficult for me to think of it in that way. Like my initial reaction was, no, I don't owe my past anything. That's just part of my past, and I moved on, and I am the way I am now, and go forward into the future. But it is a little difficult to think of my past identity as a separate being. In a way, I have a little trouble wrapping my mind around that right now, but I agree that, like, anything that happened in your past makes you who you are today. And I do have regret and kind of remorse for the way I was, for my past. I often wish I could have been different. I could have come out earlier, and especially in college, I think that would have been such a different experience if I had. But I have to look at the time period and things growing up, if I had come out early, that would have been horrible. In my school and in my family and everything, I couldn't have that. It wouldn't have worked. I would have been just as miserable, but in a different way. I mean, I was depressed and hid who I was and wanted to die. But if I would have come out, I would have gotten so much more pressure from the outside, from family and friends and church and everything. And I would have been depressed for different reasons.
Yeah,
And
you're just trading one
yeah,
set of complications for an entirely different set of complications. I have a friend who is a Catholic priest, and I literally looked at him one day and I'm like, how in the fuck did you ever decide to become a Catholic priest? And his literal answer to that was, I just found one set of complications I can deal with better than the other set of complications.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But look, I don't owe my younger self anything. And two, the point is not to see that person as a separate person, but again, as a evolutionary step. I make
right.
no bones about it. Bill was a very toxic individual. Bill told gay jokes, Bill told trans jokes, Bill told offensive shit to people. It was not a great period in my life. But while not owing that end of my life anything, I still recognize that that's one step after the next. So,
Right. And
oh,
that oh sorry.
no,
That's kind of what I'm feeling about it. Like, I don't owe that past something. I feel like I do owe myself now to be who I am
right.
and to live life the way I want and to be happy. But yeah, anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Onyx, go for it. You have the
Okay.
ball.
I'm going to see your quote, Wendy, and read you another one. The self is not something ready-made, but something in continuous formation through choice of action, John Dewey. And you actually quoted that, and so it sticks with me a lot. And so, first of all, in the sense of owing myself or my younger self, yeah, I look at my younger self with grace. I was not a great person before when I was younger. I was an addict, and I still am, but I don't abuse drugs anymore. I probably would if it was in front of me, not gonna lie. But I was an addict, and I was a terrible addict, and I did terrible things. And but I still look on that time and have to give myself a sense of grace and understanding that that shell of a human protected me until I could find the understanding and the power to come out. When I came out, I did that real life test shit where I was dressing before I started taking hormones, and it was scary and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like and I'm gonna drop my dad name again, and I don't like it. It sounds strange coming out of my mouth, but I feel like I owe Stuart a debt of gratitude. He was a bad person, but ultimately saved my life. I did try to unalive myself when I was masquerading as Stuart. Drugs and gender dysphoria and bipolar disorder, will do that to you. I'm happy to say that through all of it, I made it to the other side. I'm still alive. I am trans, and I've been living my authentic life for 10 years. Um, and I've hit a marker. I've hit a bench point that makes me proud. I look back on those years that I've lost wistfully. I lost my 20s, I lost my 30s, I lost my teen years, where I could have grown up in a much different way, and what I think would have been a much more satisfying way. But you know, throughout all those teenage and 20s and 30s, I was, I was, I was just at least in my teen years, I was just a regular kid, or what I figured was a regular kid. I started exploration in right outside of college. In the 90s, I was around in the 90s, and of course there were no cameras, no nothing. So in college, I started, exploration. First of all, I went to see if I was gay. That just didn't take. I hung out with a lot of queer people, but I just couldn't find my space. So it took a lot of self work. It took a lot of searching, before I found a book called True Selves, and I found a web group, and through those two groups, I learned that yes, indeed, all these things I've been feeling point to being trans, and at that time it was transsexual. To being transsexual, it's the whole loop is kind of strange and kind of cool. But what happened is I was forming my identity from young age to an old age. So I look back on the younger age and say, I can't be too upset. That age formed my age now, protected me when I was younger, because my parents told me they would have kicked me out. I would have been just another statistic, possibly, black, no place to live, trans, it all sounds like a statistic, basically. So I think that I protected myself until I could come out without a problem.
Wow, that's powerful.
Sorry, I just kind of ramble sometimes.
No. It's good, actually. So the next point that I am going to bring up is the cartography of shifting desire. And what do I mean when I say desire's shifting cartography? Well, sexual and romantic orientation can evolve over an entire lifetime. The person who identified as a lesbian at 20 might discover a bisexual attraction at 30. Because in no way am I going to participate in bi erasure, because that's bullshit.
There we go.
Or a gay person might later realize that they're asexual. That fluidity triggers accusations within ourselves of confusion or legitimacy. And we question that. So when you embrace your orientation as a living map rather than a permanent tattoo that you put on your arm that has your child's name on it in another language, like I did, using terms like queer, right, and questioning can provide breathing room. Regularly checking in with your orientation, what you're attracted to, and how you're attracted to that type of person. You know, especially without judgment, and then finding communities to validate that evolution um, that don't demand consistency, because there isn't any. For me personally, I happen to be very pansexual. I am very demisexual, and I am very sapiosexual. So the person has to be smart. I have to have an emotional connection with the person. But outside of that, the rest of it is whatever the fuck it can be. But every couple of months or so, I check in with myself and I say, okay, is that where I still am? Yep. Okay. Perfect. Then I'm okay. But the evolution of that, I mean, I was a straight male for a long time. I had tendencies. When I was young, I cross-dressed, and I engaged in stimulating events, self-gratifying stimulating events that not a normal straight person would ever have done. You know, exploring the entity of that orientation. And then, you know, it was like, I'm gay. And I was like, well, no, not really. You know, a little bit of time went by and it was like, no, this isn't the case. So I'm bisexual. And then that turned into a pansexuality. And then I realized that the emotional connection that I needed was the thing that I needed to have a physical relationship with somebody. Yeah, I had a good time. I rolled in the hay a handful of times. You know, but it wasn't there weren't enjoyable experiences because they didn't have an emotional connection with the person. So, you know, no person ever steps in the same river twice. And it's not intrinsically, it is not the same river. And nor are they the same person when they do. Brandon?
Well, I'm just kind of gay, and now when I was first aware of sexual, we lost another one. When I was first aware of any kind of sexuality, I didn't see at the time, I didn't see it as sexual, but one of the very few male friends that I had, I invited over for a sleepover, and I don't know how old I was, but it was before puberty. Elementary school. I can't say how old, but I remember like when we were getting ready for bed, like getting dressed, changed into, you know, pajamas or whatever. I wanted to see him in his underwear. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Because we were like, that was not a thing that you weren't supposed to look at somebody changing or look at somebody naked or whatever.
Oh, heavens no.
No. So we would, there were two beds in, I think my brother must have gone to a friend's house that night or something like that. And there were two beds in the room, and we both kind of got down behind the bed to change, you know, because we didn't want to, you know,
show off
and
the goods.
Right. But I did want to see him in his underwear, but I kind of made like it was a joke. Like I I ran over there, and he laughed, and I ran back, and then he ran over to me, and so it's like it was like a little joke, but I did want to see him, and
Do you think he
that was
the same way?
I don't think so. I think it was just in response to what I did.
Okay.
Because I never got that kind of feeling from him going forward as we got older. But I don't know for sure. But I didn't get that impression.
Okay.
But at the time, yeah, I didn't know anything about sex at the time, really. But looking back on it now, I realize, oh, that's kind of interesting that I had that proclivity, I guess. I don't know if that's the word I want to use or not, but there you go.
That's a good word.
And then when I got into junior high, of course, going through puberty, the first time that I masturbated, it was in response to a guy. But then I did try to have a girlfriend. That didn't work. I mean, I was very shy and not a popular kid or anything, so I didn't have a girlfriend. But I think there were times that I thought about a girl in a sexual way, but I don't know. Well, like you said, you kind of go back and forth thinking about different things, kind of testing things out in your mind, maybe in a way. And of course, being attracted to guys was wrong according to what I was taught and everything. So all of that was kind of suppressed for me. I tried not to think about that kind of thing, but when we were in gym class and stuff like that, of course I wanted to look, guys taking showers and stuff like that. It was very difficult for me not to look. But yeah, I can't remember where I was going with all of this.
The
Evolution of
yes,
sexuality.
the evolution of identity, specifically the desire shifting. Which, by the way, the thing that you talked about, that's my next point.
Oh, okay.
Because I have a story about it. So, but Onyx, please.
Okay, so what I did was kind of write down my evolution of sexuality and all of that. So I started out straight, but I was young and didn't really know anything. My mind was not on sex or sexuality or gender, anything like that. I was just existing as a little kid, So at some point in my life, and I would say like middle teens, late teens, it shifted towards lesbian. I had seen and consumed all this lesbian media, and I was thinking, I feel like in my head I should have been born a woman and a lesbian. At that. So I was very sapphic. What I tried to do in college was experiment with being gay. I liked femme-leaning gay guys, and I still do. I do like femme-leaning and pretty gay guys. I like, so from there, I started transitioning, of course, and went back to being pretty sapphic, which I am, very sapphic. And so it was a transbian. The one thing that I feel like I missed out on was a trans for trans relationship. I've been married for 23 years, or with my wife, my partner, for 23 years. So I, essentially missed out on that. We are monogamous. So there is no room for me to experiment. And that's not even saying that I would be able to get someone. It may be something like where she finds someone really quickly and I'm the one who's like, ah. But going from transbian, I went to asexual, and that has been my kind of overriding identity for so long, like for 13 years, where I wasn't very sexual. And it's not celibacy, it's just not attracted to or needing sex. I kind of flipped in my manic episode. My manic episode brought out a lot of stuff, but it brought out the sexual part. It came roaring back. So I dropped Demi. I'm Demi, of course. Just like Wendy, I've got to build a connection with the person. But there is a term that I recently heard of, maybe within the last year, called omnisexual. And I think it's just like pansexual on steroids, whatever goes. So women, men, trans women, men, non-binary people, gay people, straight people, any kind of people, just people, and that is kind of where I landed on now. The one thing I will regret is not having a trans for trans relationship. Yes. So that is my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So filtering back to Brandon's story, and Brandon, you don't have to answer this one because you basically already have. So you and I are going to have this talk. But
okay,
the invisible recognition. Well, Brandon, you can comment if you want. But reading queer signals in a heteronormative world, and so when you're younger, you face this desperate need to find others like yourself. Yet there's a complete lack of any reliable method to do so. In the 70s and 80s and 90s, you went to a gay bar, but they were very difficult to find. And
Backstreet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. Backstreet. I mean, like Backstreet in Atlanta was like the only gay bar that I knew of. But to be honest, there were other bars that gravitated queer individuals. I remember one night, my then ex, my now ex, my then girlfriend, Mary, who I've written about in the queer space stories, she and I went to Club Anytime down on 10th. And so we're in there and everybody's dancing. And this guy walks up in between us and starts dancing with her. He's like, "Oh God, you're such a great dancer." And she looks at him. She says, Hey, I'm with him. And he looks at her and says, "Honey, don't worry about it. I'm gay as fuck. You have nothing to worry about. I just wanted to dance with you." So,
love it.
Yeah, that was the shtick. But when you're younger, you have to navigate the dangerous uncertainty. Is the person safe enough to approach? Will expressing kinship result in friendship or violence? It's like the Brokeback Mountain quote: "If this thing takes a hold of us at the wrong time, well, we're dead because people are going to kill us." And when I was younger, I had a friend named Caden, and we would, we'd go camping and shit. And there was more than one occasion where he'd go out of his tent and I'd hear it and I'd unzip my tent and he'd drop trow and relieve himself. And yeah, I looked. because I wanted to see it. And, I mean, I won't lie and say it wasn't beautiful. It was. But, when you're figuring out your identity in that type of situation, everybody just assumes that everybody else is heterosexual, largely in part. So it's not like you can look at somebody naked and go, oh my God, because everybody else just assumes that, oh, you're straight like everybody else. So that's where subtle signaling systems come into play. The hanky code, the keychain code, it was never true, but they said it anyway, which earring was in which ear, that code, and like that kind of signaling becomes, we were at a security conference and I was approached by somebody and I started talking to them about network security and info security shit and whatever. And she just looked at me and she's like, are you trans? And I said, yeah. Are you gay? She's like, yeah. Okay. But back in the, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you couldn't do that. You couldn't ask somebody that question and get away with it. As a matter of fact, and I will reiterate this, if back in the 70s and 80s, if you accused Liberace of being gay around the wrong person, they got mad.
Pissed, yes.
Yeah, they get pissed off at you.
As Freddie Mercury, my father-in-law was never believing that he was gay. Never.
Oh my God. And so the moral to that is that we do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. And that collective is what creates that indifference. So Brandon, if you have a comment to that effect, or you just want to laugh at me, I'm completely okay with that.
Well, I never knew of any gay people in my area. I mean, it was very rural, and there definitely wasn't anybody that was out. And at the time, because I was, suppressing those kind of feelings, I don't know if I would have even recognized signs from anyone else have any kind of gaydar. And I still am wrong sometimes. I'm not, there have been a couple times that I was at a restaurant with a friend of mine a couple of friends of mine who knew I was gay, and we had a server, a male. He was very good looking and very, I mean, he you could tell he cared about his appearance and stuff, and my friend was saying she thought he was gay. And I was like, oh, really? You think so? Whatever. So before we left, I gave him my number and then ran out the door, basically like I didn't want to hear any kind of answer or anything. I just gave him my number. And right before we were leaving, we were done with the meal and all that, and he called me. I don't think it was that day, but maybe the next day or something like that. And he said, well, I just wanted to let you know I'm not gay, but a lot of people have said I'm metrosexual, but I just wanted to tell you that or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. He's like, oh, no, you don't need to apologize. It's just, I just wanted to let you know that. So I was like, wrong again. But I mean, it was really nice, I think, of him to take the time.
To at least call you.
Yeah. He could have just crumbled that number up and gone on about his day. But I thought that was nice. And there have been a couple other times I've left my number, like a couple other times at a restaurant, that I thought, oh, he's got to be gay.
You're cute. Here's my number. Call me.
Yeah. I was like, but either I was wrong or they weren't into me or whatever it was. But yeah, and I was at a water park, and I was with that same friend of mine that knew we were best friends at the time, and she was basically the only person I had come out to. And there was a lifeguard who I thought was very attractive, and he had kind of longer hair, and he was flipping his hair and stuff, playing, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, I wonder if he's gay. And my friend was like, oh, you should go talk to him. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But then he got down. This female lifeguard came over, and they switched, and he went over to another station, and my friend was like, oh, you should go ask her about him. And I was like, well, I could probably do that. I was like, but watch, I'm going to go up there, and he's going to be her boyfriend or something, So anyway, I go up and I say, that guy that was just here? And she's like, yeah. I was like, is he gay? And she just starts laughing. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. No. She's like, no, it's okay. She's like, do you think he's cute or something? I'm like, well, yeah. She's like, oh, and she said, actually, he's my boyfriend. And I was like, oh,
my God.
That's exactly what I said to my friend. I was like, this is what's going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. And so I was, so obviously I do not have the most accurate gaydar, I mean, there are times where I can tell. It's like, there's this guy that works at a local grocery store that I often go to, and I know he's gay, and we haven't talked about that. We've talked here and there. I'll say hi to him and stuff, and just a little chit chat here and there. And I mean, if I'm wrong about him, I'm just going to give up altogether. I'm just going to throw in the towel and just turn off the gaydar and be like, you know what? This thing is faulty. I'm never going to use it again. There's no point, because I'm really sure that he is gay. But anyway, growing up, I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any signs from anybody, and I didn't. If they were in the closet, and I wasn't reading the signs, because sometimes I can be naive or oblivious to some things, to signs and things like that. And it may have been that case. It may have been the case in high school. I can't, even looking back, I can't think of anybody that I would say, oh, I bet he was gay. But we were in a very small school, so there would have been less chance of any gay or anybody in the LGBTQ plus community. But anyway, there's my 2 cents about.
I think, before you answer, Alex, I think that in smaller rural areas, it's still very risky to do this. But in major cities, it's a little easier to go out somewhere into a public space and ask somebody of the same gender or similar gender, you're cute, are you single? And for the most part, no, I'm not gay, but thank you. That's the response that here in Atlanta, if you're, over at the Chop House or whatever, and you ask a waiter, you tell the waiter, you're cute, are you single? I guarantee you 95% of the time, it's either yes, and I'm not single, yes, and I am single, or no, I'm not single, but I am also not gay, or no, I am not, it's going to be one of the interchangeable and respectable. I mean, people, they don't get bent out of shape, like they did, back in the day.
Well, that's the other thing. If I would have asked anybody in my area, I wouldn't have asked anybody anyway in my area because, like you said, it can be risky. They could respond in a very negative or hostile kind of way, and I would not have wanted to risk that.
Right. Onyx?
Okay. Elementary school and middle school was spent on an Army base. I went for my first year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years to school on it that was not on an Army base, but was attached to the Army base. A lot of kids went there. So, I was more concerned with not getting beaten up, as opposed to sex, or any type of thing. But I'm telling you, when I moved to Atlanta, my gaydar just started popping off. I have a very good gaydar, I think, and that's just me talking about me. I have been called metrosexual ever since that word popped up. People would say, "Are you gay? Are you metro? What is it?" And I was like, well, neither of those. I'm just a straight guy. Still in my closet phase. I would admit to being a little metro, because that was closest thing to being queer that I could actually express without expressing everything, without just letting the whole cat out of the bag, as it were. So I finally honed my gaydar. I went to Club Anytime. I spent so many nights and mornings and days in Backstreet, just dancing with the gay guys, watching the drag shows, doing a lot of drugs, hanging out, but just basically soaking up the gay scene. I was not gay, and I knew that, but I experimented, not going to lie. Even in France, Orléans, I was giving this guy a hand job, and he then punched me in the face and ran off. So, there has been experimentation, but ultimately, I realized that, like I said, coming back to it now that I'm omnisexual, so all that part that was shame and guilt, hidden, even though I could see people were gay or straight, or if this person was trans, I could kind of pick up on that. I could pick up on people who were queer. And I usually was not wrong. I may have been wrong about the stripe of queer, but usually not, with studs, I can pick up studs. Studs are black masked black masked women. And, you can pick up on a stud, at least I can. White masked women, all being masked. It's I don't know. I guess we spent so much time in my head and online, I built up a way to pick up on these signals. And yeah, well,
see, I need to hang out. I need to bring you along with me, AJ.
Well, the last point that I had for the discussion, and this, there's an emotional component to this. We lost Brandon again. Here we go.
I'm sure he'll pop
Yeah,
on. There he is.
I got him. There's an emotional component to this, as much as there is a physical component to this. So, Brandon, you can interact with this topic.
Oh.
And that's the collapse of the binary architecture.
Yes.
So, for almost all queer individuals, the entire scaffolding of male and female feels like a building that was designed without queer persons in mind. Every doorway the wrong height, every room the wrong shape. You know, all of that narrative, you know, rolled up into the heteronormativity of relationship structures. You know, when you come out as a queer person, you know, monogamy, marriage, nuclear family, none of those things may hold relevance. And they don't always fit into the queer spectrum of life. Yet there are a ton of us that try to force that narrative. You know, it's like the age-old question, you know, when you see a gay couple walking around and some idiot walks up and says, well, which one of you is the woman and which one of you is the guy? Oh my God, I hate that fucking question. That question bugs the shit out of me. Which, as a femme identifying trans woman, right? Who's the woman? Who's the man? That question is complete bullshit. But still, as a queer person, we try to force ourselves into that binary because from the heteronormative side of the spectrum, that's what we believed had to happen. And even as a queer person, as a gay person, as a lesbian person, that narrative tries to enforce, and it just shouldn't. Exploring alternative relationship structures, ethical non-monogamy, polyamory, chosen family configurations, aromantic partnerships, the freedom to design the relationships that you have serve actual needs rather than just fuck what society expects. You know, communication heavy, consent focused frameworks replace assumed scripts. There are people, I expect you to go down on one knee and say, here, marry me. Doesn't have to work that way. Doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way in heteronormative relationships, but they're bound to that mold for whatever fucking reason. And so, you know, the adage behind that, freedom is what you do with what's been done to you, which is Sartre, of course. And I love to quote Sartre, so I do that quite often. So, Brandon, thoughts? Do you want to get married, have 2 kids, and live in a house with a white picket fence?
No.
Right.
I mean, I'm not like completely opposed to that idea, I guess, but I'm not sure about the picket fence part. No, actually, no. I would like to get married. I'm not so much into the kids. Like, I mean, if I meet a guy that has kids, you know, I'm sure we can find a space in the attic for him or something. But I don't. That's not a real desire that I have to, you know, to raise children, especially now. Like, I have nieces and nephews. That's enough.
Children require a lot of energy.
Oh yes, and I'm fine with not having them. So,
Onyx.
Yeah, you know, so first of all, I've got to say 23 years of being together with one person is wonderful. We have built so many great memories together, some not so great. But and we've got a bond that can't be broken. That being said, as a trans person who came out during the marriage, and my wife also had to go through her own transition, and she decided to stay in the marriage. It took about 3 years where we talked about divorce, but she ultimately stayed in the marriage. What that meant for me, though, is that, and she is monogamous. She has told me that, she is not really ready to consider ethical non-monogamy or polyamory or anything like that, which kind of limits me, from wanting to experiment. I want a trans relationship where I just think the dynamics would be different, and maybe that's me just daydreaming and, making a pipe dream where there's really nothing, smoke where there's no fire. Maybe I'm just like living in my head here. But that's definitely something, as a femme identifying non-binary person, I want to experience it all. And I haven't really, before I got married, I had the opportunity. Once I got married, I didn't. And then transitioning while married, I was still am kind of locked in. So while I am omnisexual in theory, in practice, I am not. And, the nuclear family idea, I was never one for kids. Never. As a matter of fact, when me and Egg started dating, we both agreed that we didn't want kids. Somewhere along the way, that changed for Egg, and I just was not communicative about it. I went ahead in 2018, got an orchiectomy. And for those who don't know what an orchiectomy is, it's the surgical removal of the testicles. And that, essentially, HRT essentially makes you sterile, but getting your testicles removed definitely makes you sterile. So I didn't bank sperm before doing that, and I did not really talk to her before doing that. So it is kind of a sore subject. I feel bad for her because she would have been a great mother, and I feel like I robbed her of that opportunity. That doesn't mean I wanted to be a parent, but I think I, in the end, would have been a good parent, but there's so many things that come into play: energy, money, stability. We both have medical issues on either side of our family, from schizophrenia to heart disease and Crohn's disease and bipolar disorder. It's a lot. So we decided, or I guess I decided, not to have kids, and she just went along with it. After the orchiectomy, though, she did let me know. And, apparently there was a time in 2013 where I was like, yeah, let's try and have kids. But, maybe that was just half-cocked on my end, because that was during the period of when we were talking about getting divorced. And so maybe that was me, doing some shitty things, and saying, let's have kids, when I knew I didn't really want to. And it just didn't happen. So, yeah, the nuclear family thing is not what I wanted. It was something that I think Egg wanted. And, we still have discussions about, and painful discussions about that today,
Well, those are all normal narratives to have
Right.
going through this process. We're just over the hour, and so I had one or two more, but I feel like we've covered it pretty solidly. So, Brandon, final thoughts? I'll do the last final thoughts before we sign off.
I don't know. I don't really have anything. I can't. I mean, my identity has changed a bit, but I'm quite gay.
Honey, you're fabulously gay. So then I'll just say this. So identity evolution across the queer spectrum is not a linear progression. But it's a spiral that deepens. Circling back to touch old wounds, newer wisdom. But each transformation requires mourning for what we thought we were celebrating, what we were becoming. Closet walls dissolve, and not in one dramatic moment, unless, I don't know, you're Rock Hudson and you get outed as gay on the national media, then maybe your closeting experience ends very abruptly. But we shed inherited names, we build new architectural vocabularies, we learn to recognize each other through frequencies only the marginalized can hear. But that evolution is both solitary excavation and collective uprising at the same time. And I would say this at the end of every line: I can't get through this shit without you guys.
Yeah. Well.
I don't think we can get through this shit without each other. That support net exists, and it exists for a reason. And so the personal made political, the private transformed into communal liberation. But the fact of the matter is, at the core, we're all just in a state of becoming. Whatever that is, from one stage to the next, is what it is, and that's what we need to focus on, I think. But you can tell me I'm bullshitting, and I'll take that. I'll take that. So let's see. So we didn't have Miranda today. I am in Vegas from Monday to Friday of next week. So live sessions are going to be pretty limited. I'm going to ask Sarah if she wants to host Trauma Lives, and I will give her over a handful of topics if she is interested in doing them on the Monday and Thursday. We can talk about that in the private channel. And then, but then I probably the week following, I'm going to announce my revised live schedule. I'm just going to warn you all, I'm probably going to go to just the 2 trauma lives during the week, Monday and Thursday, and then maybe one geopolitical live in the middle there somewhere, Tuesday, Wednesday, one of those days. And that's pretty much going to be it. And then bolstering other people's live sessions, because I love doing live sessions, especially these sessions, because I get the most feedback from these sessions. The trauma sessions, I think, are important. We should keep doing them as long as the band agrees to go on stage. Brandon, do you have thoughts about that?
Well, I plan to go live every day in December. And it's kind of a push at the end of the year, trying to attract more subscribers and stuff, and go into the new year with, trying to bolster my publication and everything. So I thought maybe this would be a good, I don't know. It's kind of an experiment, see if it works. But I've got several different people lined up that are going to be guests. And most of the time I'll go on by myself, but I'm going to have a bunch of people, a couple of people who've never been on a live before. So that'll be kind of fun. But
well, I would just tell you, if I go to like 3 or 4 lives a week, one of my off days, if you need an extra co-host, I will gladly I will gladly co-host for any of you. Just ask.
Yeah, I'd love to be on either of y'all's.
Yeah, just ask.
Yeah, I probably will because. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I can guarantee you, Brandon, there's one person I'm never going to invite. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yes, I think so.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Onyx. Thank you, Miranda, if you're still listening or paying attention. I'm in the process of downloading all the trauma episodes, and I'm going to post those. So if you don't have those, either of you, for reposting purposes, I'm going to send links for that here in the next hour or so, just to make sure that you're all covered.
I think I've got mine all. I posted one yesterday, and I think up to that point, I think I've posted all of them at some point. So
okay, well, I
so.
know I'm a creature of habit. I want to make sure.
Oh yeah,
I'm 100% sure how to post it unless it comes over like Sarah sent it last time.
Right.
And,
yeah, that's what I do. Is I put them in my Proton account, and then securely, because that's where I trust my data to live.
Yeah.
Is in a Swiss hosted country's email and data.
I have a Proton account, Proton Drive. I suggest everybody get a Proton account.
Yeah. Here, let me drop that. If you want secure email, I will advertise for Proton. Here we go. That's a resource that will never ask you. They will never fall victim to an American subpoena. If America tries to subpoena your email records from Proton, they'll look at them like they're a bunch of dumb shits and remind them, we're in Switzerland, fuck you.
Right.
Also, Proton's VPN services are really the best VPN services that you can have. Yeah, from a security perspective, I'm pretty sure the U.S. government doesn't like that occasionally I connect to a Cuban VPN endpoint, but I don't give a shit. Fuck the government.
Right. Like when I'm connecting to the Netherlands or Ecuador,
yeah, right.
They don't like that.
Oh, no. So with that, though, Brandon, Onyx, Miranda, thank you all. Thank you, everybody that joined. And then wait for the next live, which will probably be on Monday and without me. We'll see what happens.
I'd like. Okay.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Eat plenty of turkey. Go into tryptophan coma. But do good things. And I love you all.
Yeah, and remember, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving for the pilgrims. We celebrate for our friends and to decolonize everything.
Yes.
Let's keep
completely. All right. Signing off. Don't listen to that over there.
Oh, fuck me.